All right. Awesome. And we're live.
Oh,
amazing. Oh, yeah. Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for joining and taking the time.
Yeah, I feel like that little 5-second countdown went really fast.
It's clutch to have a 5-second countdown. Yeah, awesome. So while people are joining, I would love, before we kind of get into things, and I have a bunch of questions that we'll go through, and anybody that's joining, any questions as we get into stuff, definitely put them in the comments. I'll keep an eye on the comments if things come up as we go through. We'll see. But to start us off, do you want to give a quick intro into you and all the amazing things that you do for our dogs?
Awesome. Yeah, sure. I will preface this video by saying I do have a sick dog at home, so if you hear a lot of rummaging in the background, it's probably Anthony running to take the dogs.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah.
No, what a mess. So I actually started my whole journey as a pet pastry chef. So I actually used to be a human pastry chef, and then kind of got into the world of baking for dogs. That was kind of what started my whole journey. And that was, I think, probably what really opened my eyes to how all the pet food industry cannot always be the best industry. I always grew up with animals, but I was admittedly very naive to how shitty the industry can be.
Yeah.
Let's use that word. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Whatever words you want to use.
So I that was my first stepping stone into getting into, like I said, how kind of shitty the industry can be.
Yeah.
And then when I opened my store, I realized just from curating products and stuff that I was like, wow, there is so few actually good foods out there. It's actually scary how few good foods there are. So I was like, there's got to be a better way. I really am very diligent about, I do own a boutique, so I won't sell anything that I won't give to my own dogs. If I wouldn't trust a product on my own dogs, I won't sell it. That's period, the end. I won't endorse it, anything like that. But I've been cooking on and off for my dogs for, I would say about a year now, and they do really well. They are kibble eaters. I will be very transparent about that. They are kibble eaters, but they do get a lot of fresh foods as well. So yeah, I think I just my whole goal is really just to kind of open people's eyes to how affordable and accessible eating fresh foods can be. I'm not a raw feeder, which I know a lot of people will crucify me for. But I personally just don't always think it's realistic. I think it's very expensive. I think people don't always do it correctly. And if you're not doing it correctly, you can make your dog very sick.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my stance on what we feed and
and that's what I think for us too. I mean, we cook for our dogs, but I think it's really whatever works for you.
Exactly.
Everybody's only doing their best, and if that's feeding whatever kibble that you've done your homework on and you think is good for your dog, and ideally adding some, we're obviously big proponents of adding some friends in if you are feeding kibble.
And there's people that work a lot, and sometimes you don't have the time or the energy to even cook for yourself. So I totally understand and can sympathize that you're not always going to have the energy to do that for your dog. So I feel like we have a lot of really good tips to keep it cheap and easy and kind of supplement your kibble or whatever you're doing.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's a good sort of segue into what we are talking about today, in that kind of from all this DCM hysteria over the past, I mean, I guess it's really been over a year now, but definitely over the past couple of weeks with the most recent update, it feels like people everybody's scrambling to figure out, and I don't want to get into a DCM discussion. So that's not the point of this, but it feels like everybody's what do I do? Because we know that the FDA report, they don't it wasn't, conclusive. It wasn't this equals this, and this is why it's happening, and this is what you should do. And there were no sort of direct answers.
Yes.
But it doesn't, so that's like kind of not helpful, right? Like, I mean, it's helpful to know, but then it's also like, all right, well, what do I do in the meantime of like, while you're doing all this research and figuring out like what's actually going on?
And I think to backtrack, like the word hysteria that you used is very much like a very good word to use. And in no way am I downplaying the severity of DCM, but this is very much an over sensationalized thing that's going on. I mean, it's not, again, it's not not a serious condition, but there's a lot of other conditions that are going down in dogs that are very much an epidemic. And this like is not an epidemic. An epidemic is obesity in pets. An epidemic is cancer in pets. I mean, you're looking at 50% plus numbers on those alone.
Yeah. So it's like it, how I've sort of been thinking about it is it just like adds one more thing for us to worry about. And be aware of and all of that. And I think, you know, for what we're going to talk about tonight, like focusing on the, you know, thinking about DCM or thinking just in general, cancer, obesity, whatever, like pick whatever you want to talk about. But, you know, it all, like just looking at the FDA report, for example, it was like 90% was about dry food. So thinking about that and then thinking about, you know, adding fresh into your dog's dish and all of the benefits that come with that, and specifically about adding fresh food that you know, could benefit their heart and help support their heart. What are some of the foods that people could add? Like specifically thinking about heart health. What are some like real foods that people can add to their dog? If it's kibble, if you're home cooked, like whatever you're doing.
So I gotcha. So I feel like it's worth noting before I get into the details though, is if you are a kibble feeder and you're freaking out or you're feeling guilty or something like this, like don't. Just like take a step back and don't, because I know a lot of our customers were saying, I feel awful. I thought I was buying the best of the best. And like my food was mentioned on that. And like, I'm terrible. You're not terrible. First of all, we all know that everyone's doing best for their dogs. And also too, keep in mind that, so 90% of what you said, like 90% was kibble, but honestly, just this is a rough ballpark. This is not based on any actual numbers, but if I just had to guess based on what I know, probably 70% of dog owners in America probably feed kibble.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So obviously, like right off the bat, those numbers are affecting a larger broad of people. So if you are feeding kibble and you're concerned about this, or you're feeling like you messed up or you did wrong by your dog, like that, you need to just take a step back, take a breather. A lot of people are freaking out.
For sure. And talk to your vet. Like, I don't want, like, if, you know, nothing that we say tonight, it's not like, this isn't advice, like in place of your vet. Like if you think
every dog is different. I'm going to go through what I do with my dogs and, you know, some favorites that I have, but every dog's different. So, you know, you never know.
You're getting some, let's see. Maura says, Amanda, you're amazing.
Is that my sister?
Maura Pierce?
Yeah.
There you go. Sister support.
They're always good for that.
And let's see, we have a hi from John. So there you go. Hi, John.
Very insightful comments.
What's that?
Very insightful comments.
Yes, there we go. All supportive. Great. Fresh food that is like focused on heart health.
Okay, so I'm going to start by breaking it down to the 4 things that you want to focus on when you are focusing on heart health. So the 3 vitamins that you want to focus on are vitamin A, vitamin C, and vitamin E, and then taurine. So that is the big buzzword that's surrounding this whole DCM thing. So we're going to get into that too. So vitamin A, right off the bat, that's going to be your, you know, immune system support. So that's going to protect you from getting any, like fighting any bacterial infections or diseases that could possibly affect the heart. So that's going to be a big thing that you want to make sure when you're adding fresh foods. Vitamin C, just like people, it's a good antioxidant. It's going to be good for heart function as a whole. It's going to decrease inflammation as a whole, not just heart health. And then vitamin E is going to be your last vitamin. So vitamin E is, again, going to be just like people, protect from free radicals. It's an antioxidant, protect from any of the damage that free radicals are going to do for your cells, including your heart. Pollution and all that other stuff can affect dogs in all the way that it affects us. So that's another way that vitamin E is going to work. And then taurine. So again, that's the biggest kind of like buzzword and culprit that's surrounding this whole DCM thing. So we'll get into that a little bit more. And I know you want to talk about supplementing and stuff. So we'll get into that a little bit later. So I'm just going to kind of go down the list. I wrote down a few staples in each of those vitamin categories that I really love. And all of these things are accessible at your local grocery store, whether it be ShopRite, Pathmark, Target, wherever you shop. I only listed things that you could easily grab at the grocery store for yourself. And all of these things are going to probably cost you probably a few of them like less than $2. The most expensive thing I would say on here is probably going to be about $5.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think that also is one of the big kind of hurdles when people start thinking about like adding fresh or like I think number one, it sounds expensive, and it also number two, it sounds like daunting. Like, what am I doing? Like, what do I do?
There's so many fresh pet foods out there that really aren't as good as they claim to be, and they're very expensive.
Yeah.
So this is a really great, easy way for you to start out, and you could start with a few of these things. You could start with one of these things, and I'll tell you what my number one in each category would be.
Okay. Let's do it. Awesome.
So vitamin A, right off the bat, just to kind of circle back, that's going to be your immune system and your bacterial support, like avoiding all that. You have a lot of really good options in here. Eggs. Eggs are so easy and so cheap, and everyone always has eggs. Yep. And our dogs get eggs pretty much every Sunday morning. We scramble them up. You can even, if you're feeling a little more adventurous, just crack them in raw. Into your kibble. That's a really good beginner start to feeding some fresh foods or to feeding raw, full on cracked egg, shell, everything. So the shell is actually where you're going to get a lot of your calcium from. So if you're home cooking, that's a really big thing.
Yeah, that's what we do. We put Boz gets an egg.
Yeah.
He doesn't get the shell. He's like a little weird when we get his
you
stomach.
got to dry him out and grind him into like
his stomach goes.
We'll do that in another video.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So eggs are number one.
Eggs are going to be a really good one. Anything like carrots, pumpkins, sweet potatoes, all those things, super easy. Again, like super affordable. Canned for pumpkin, just do canned. For sweet potato, fresh, roast them up, scrape them out, mush them up in your dog's kibble. So easy. For carrots, we do frozen. We buy those like steam in a bag frozen carrots. Again, keeps it super affordable. You're going to eliminate your waste. You could give them like chips as treats, or you could just grind them up in a food processor and again, mix them in with your kibble. We do a lot of fish for our dogs, and you'll notice as a whole, I'm a big advocate for fish for dogs. And that a lot of it does have to do with heart health. So we do canned salmon. Canned salmon is so cheap, and it goes a long way. I feel like for people, I get people like get a little freaked out by canned salmon, but honestly, for dogs, there's nothing wrong with it. For people, it's just like we're right. Right?
Is there anything to look for? I've admittedly never bought canned salmon.
Yeah, canned salmon, and also the other big thing we do a lot of, like almost every day, is we do canned sardines.
Yeah. I love sardines.
They're so good for them too. And honestly, as far as buying the canned salmon, just look for like USA. A lot of it's obviously going to come from Alaska. As long as it's USA, you don't have to worry about it. Try to find the one with the least amount of sodium. You want to make sure they're not adding any salt or artificial flavors to them. But again, like most of them are not.
Yeah.
Just always read your ingredient panels. Make sure that the only ingredients are like salmon and water, and you're good to go. When you open up that can, if you the number one sign that you're looking for is like that you see skin, like salmon skin. That's where all those oils and all those good fats and all are stored. And then also too, every time you open up that can, you see actual salmon skin.
Yeah.
You know you're getting real, actual chunks of salmon meat.
Yeah. I have a confession and admission, whatever. So when we first started into like adding fresh into Boz's food, I would make whatever. Like I would be making salmon for myself for dinner, and then I would give some to him. But I would throw away the salmon skin.
The skin is the best part.
That's what I know. Like literally, like months later, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot." I was like throwing, like the best thing for him.
It's gold.
Couldn't believe it. So whatever. You don't know what you don't know.
Too, like that's a good point. So we cook a lot of salmon in our house for us personally, and every single time we buy it with the skin on, and then we just slide the skin off, and we always give it to the dogs as a treat.
Now I do that.
so easy, and like you're already buying it for yourself anyway. Buy it with the skin on, throw them the skin. Oh my god, they're gonna love it.
Yeah,
it's so good for them. And that's going to be a lot of those omega-3s and all that too that we always talk about with heart health are all stored in that skin. So that's where you want to make sure that they're getting.
Yeah.
I think that kind of like covers most of the vitamin A type things, but I mean, I was pretty clear. I feel like salmon's probably my number one in that category. My dogs eat salmon every day. My next two would probably be the carrots and the eggs.
Yeah. And is there a like amount that people, so let's assume a kibble feeder, are they feeding all of this at once? Is it like a rotation? How much should they be feeding? All of that kind of stuff.
It depends on how adventurous you want to be. I would say as long as you're making up for the same volume of food, that's what you want to make sure. So like say you're starting to add in salmon, which is a really great thing. I think if you're going to start adding stuff in, start with the protein. You want to make sure that you're not dulling down their protein content because you're adding a lot of fruits and veggies and other stuff. If you are going to add fresh foods, you always want to make sure you're also adding protein because you don't want to end up with a protein deficiency. That's going to be probably you're just shooting yourself in the foot. Start with the protein and just try to make up the same content of food. So say you start out and you want to start with a little bit of eggs and a little bit of salmon, right? So say your dog eats about a cup of food each meal. Take away, say, a quarter of a cup of the kibble and make that up with the salmon and with the eggs. As long as you're not overfeeding and underfeeding. And again, just that balance. Always make sure that protein is your number one. And beyond that, it's pretty that's
what we've always kind of heard, like the 20% rule. Like if you're like just cut out a little, basically like a 20% like pie, essentially. And put that with your fresh food.
That's how we started. Yeah, probably about like we started with a little bit of kibble, or we started with mostly kibble, probably 75%, added in a 25%, and kind of like worked up. And for a long time, we were feeding 100% fresh food.
Yeah.
It's just honestly, it's so time consuming.
Yeah.
And I really do trust the kibble brands that we feed.
Yeah.
But we always add something.
Yeah. Yeah. I think adding fresh, whatever. Everybody, obviously, whatever works for everybody is great.
Exactly. Whatever you have time for, whatever you can afford, that's going to be the biggest thing. Yeah. And also like whatever kind of works for your dog, Yeah. So like I think a lot of people will we noticed that our dogs are doing a lot better when we fed. And we always thought our dogs are thriving, but they're always doing a little bit better when you start to add the fresh.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that was, what did we just talk about? Vitamin A?
Vitamin A, yeah.
Okay. The next, you want to go down the next vitamin list?
Yeah, so the next, I'm just pulling on my notes here. So the next one is vitamin E. So vitamin E, just like what I talked about with us, is like a big antioxidant. It's going to protect against, free radicals, pollution damage, everything else. If you are feeding kibble, it's worth noting that there is like a little bit of a risk of kibble getting oxidized over time. So vitamin E is going to be a good kind of protector from that as well when it comes to free radicals. Just overall damage on their cells. It's going to be good for like lawn pesticides. You know what I mean? If you're someone who lives in an area that a lot of people use lawn pesticides, vitamin E is going to be a really good thing for you to add because it's going to kind of boost their immune to that as well. Yeah. If you're somebody who uses like flea and tick preventative, we don't use flea and tick preventative, but I feel like that's like a whole different beast.
That's a whole nother life.
Yeah, we'll get into a whole other situation. So vitamin E, I would say leafy greens is like a really easy one, like kale, kale, spinach, all those things. That's worth noting though. Like you would want to start on like a lower basis because you don't want to overdo it, especially if you have a dog that has like a sensitive stomach. Sorry, hold on.
No, you're fine. I know you have.
Can you grab my iPad, my laptop charger? It's in my purse if I brought it in. Thank you. Gonna die.
Yeah, no, from like a leafy greens, like that is like we basically, you know, it's so funny when you think about all the things that we're talking about. Like it's literally all the stuff that we
applies to
like not sardines, but yeah. Like all the stuff that like
that, but I don't.
Yeah. And that like, you know, kale, salmon, like all, you know, whatever.
All that stuff. Wheat germ is another really good one. And that's like super easy. You buy it in like a little jar. It's probably in like your baking aisle. I can't imagine a big jar of wheat germ is going to cost you more than like $6-7.
Yeah.
And it's going to last you a long time. And that's super easy. Just sprinkle it into your food. Yeah, that's a really easy one. Liver, if you can stomach it, like any kind of organ meat, if you can stomach it. I'm kind of like a pansy when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not really good with that. But if you can stomach it, that's a good one. And then good grains. So I'll dive into this a little bit too, going back to kind of the DCM thing that's all going on. Did you find it? Thank you. You're so good.
so supportive.
You're so supportive. Are you gonna? Thanks, babe. You're the best. Last day of the year over here. I told him to get out of the room, and then I was like, "Wait, I need you."
All right, so grains.
Yep. So that's worth noting too, because a lot of a big thing that was talked about was grain free versus grain inclusive. I'm not one side of grain inclusive versus grain out. Personally, I think it's whatever really works for your dog. We personally don't feed grains because our English Bulldog Rocky has I wouldn't say he's an allergy, but he's sensitive. So he pops and he gains weight very quickly. But again, we have a dog, Jake, our puppy, who has a hard time keeping weight on. So grains are more beneficial. So that touches on like what works for your dog, might not work for mine. But whole grains and like really good, healthy grains. And what I mean by that are, oats. Oats are a really good one. What I like to do, a little trick that I like to do is bone broth, like infused oats, which sounds fancy and like complicated, but it's not at all.
Sounds amazing.
It's so easy. Buy like just marrow bones at the butcher shop, buy them frozen, so they're cheap. Make a nice bone broth in your crock pot.
Mm-hmm.
Make it for a few hours, 12 hours, break it down, and then dump your oats in and almost do like a nice overnight oats kind of action.
Ooh, I love that.
It sounds super fancy and it's not. It's cheap, it's easy, and like bone broth we all know is like amazing.
Right.
So like a bone broth infused oats is going to be a really nice thing because they're getting those carbs that they need and they're getting those grains that they need, but you're boosting their protein at the same time.
That's
a
really good idea. I'm going to do that now.
Maybe I'll post a recipe for my bone broth.
Oh my God. Yes. And then we'll have to do a live about how to make bone broth because I feel like that is a big fail in my future. But
I have a recipe and in a crock pot, so it's super easy. So like if you work a million hours a day like I do, you don't have, it does not time commitment.
Right.
So it's easy.
Yeah. Awesome.
I would say those are my like number ones for that one. We kind of talked more about the grain in versus grain free thing. Vitamin C is going to be your next one. So just like for us, we know that that's going to be our antioxidant. It's going to protect against, it's going to support heart function. It's going to protect against illness in general. Vitamin C is a big thing. A vitamin C deficiency can be really, really detrimental to your dog, not just with heart health, in general, just with their immune system. If you have a dog that's kind of like sick or lethargic like all the time, like people are like, oh, I feel like my dog just like lays around.
Yeah,
you might want to consider boosting their vitamin C intake. My number one favorite thing, hands down, in the vitamin C category is going to be blueberries. Blueberries, like hands down. I feel like if you are going to start with one fruit or one vegetable in your dog's diet, it should be blueberries, hands down. they're an absolute like superfood to the max, like antioxidants, everything. Blueberries are killer. If you have a fat dog that you need to get weight off of, do blueberries as treats. They're easy.
That's a really good idea.
Not cheap, I will say that. But you can buy them frozen.
That's what we do. I have a huge bag of blueberries in my freezer that, like, you know, I literally just add a handful every day to his dish.
Yeah. Another thing you can do too on like a nice, really hot summer day, like we've been having some crazy hot days, you can make little like fruit smoothies for your dog. So like I'm not kidding. So like you could do like ice, do blueberries, kiwis, you know, some carrots in there, blend that up and feed it as a treat, like an ice cream in like a little cup. You can make ice cubes with it, mix it in with their food on a hot day. They'll love it.
I'm so jealous of our dogs. Like, what, like how
fruit smoothies on a hot day.
Yeah, can somebody make me a fruit smoothie, please? Like, that would be really nice.
So spoiled, I know.
That's amazing. Yeah, blueberries are like incredible.
Blueberries, I would say, like if you just want to start super basic with adding in fresh food, number one, blueberries, hands down, so easy.
Awesome.
But there's a lot of other really good things that you can add that I feel like people don't always realize that dogs can have. Like broccoli is a really good one.
Yep.
That applies just like what I said before with the kale. If you have a dog who has a sensitive stomach, you just want to make sure that you're not overdoing it with that. And just like preparing the kale and the spinach, the best route to go with preparing that's going to be steaming it.
Right, the stem is the best part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the stem's got all the nutrients and stuff. So don't just give them the top. And like, no one likes the top of the broccoli.
Right.
Like, the good part anyway. Like the crunch, you know. So, kiwi they can have. Mangoes are going to be really good for.
What about kiwi?
Make your fruit smoothies.
Yeah.
Sweet potatoes also have vitamin C, so that's a good one as well. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot with vitamin C. Again, it's going to be a lot of fruits and veggies. You can do like oranges and stuff like that, but a lot of dogs don't really like citrus.
Yeah.
So
I found with Boz, my mom, who is also part of Dogly.
I love that.
I never know, like call her mom, call her Jane, whatever. I'm sure she's watching.
Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
She feeds her crew oranges, and whenever Boz is with them, he just like it just doesn't sit well with him. Like it's just not his thing.
I mean, you never know. Every dog, like I said, is different. So.
Yeah, totally.
And, I mean, I know I've met dogs that like lemon.
Oof.
It's like the weirdest thing ever. And again, like, don't run out and like feed your dog lemon.
Right.
Like acid reflux. But yeah, I mean, if your dog will eat oranges, but honestly, mangoes, kiwis, blueberries, those are a little bit more of your mild.
Yeah.
My dogs love kiwis. That's like one of their favorites.
I've never tried a kiwi before. I didn't even think about that. We've done mango. We've done everything else. Not kiwi. We haven't.
And kiwis, I think, are a highly underrated food. Like as far as like superfoods and things go, kiwis are a really great food.
Yeah.
Fruit is another good thing. If your dog does, my dogs don't drink any water. It's the weirdest thing ever.
Boz doesn't either.
No. So give them fruit so that they're forced to.
That's what he just like, he eats watermelon now because like.
Watermelon, yeah.
How else am I going to get any water? I mean, like when I feed him, it's literally like soup. I put so much water.
That's what we do.
Into his food. And I think, you know, whatever, it's all like.
And if you're doing that and you're adding in these few things that we talked about, like with the frozen carrots, or like the steamed, you know, veggies and stuff, leave the water in it. So when I do my steamed carrots in the microwave, I leave the water in and just dump it all in. And then.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So they are kind of forced to have it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Did we go through all, what are we missing?
Taurine.
Oh, taurine. Okay. Let's get into this.
Oh.
So from this whole DCM thing, and this is specific to I guess it's specific to the DCM thing.
I would say, because I feel like probably no one's ever like, unless you're crazy people like us,
right? Probably
ever even really heard of taurine.
Thought about it, yeah.
Before,
but it feels like that was another big question of like, can I just add a taurine supplement and then like everything is fine? So again, not getting into DCM, but taurine supplements, when we talked about, when we had like our long live about DCM, whenever that was, a couple of weeks ago, we kind of touched on taurine supplements. But like, what's your perspective on taurine supplements, and are there foods that, like, instead of adding a supplement, is there like something real that you can add to your food?
Yeah. So my perspective on supplements as a whole, and this applies to how I feel about people too, is I think if you're eating an appropriate balanced diet, and I think if you're getting the correct foods, I don't think you should need vitamin supplements at all.
Yeah.
That applies to all the things I just mentioned, the vitamins, everything. If your number one best bet for all these things is going to be fresh foods over supplements. The scary thing that I think a lot of people don't realize about supplements as a whole is the FDA is actually not totally obligated to hold supplement claims accountable at all. So the FDA actually doesn't completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Regulate supplements as best as they should. So there's actually very limited, if any, regulation when it comes to supplement safety, when it comes to supplement effectiveness, and when it comes to supplement just like the claims that they make as a whole.
Yeah.
So I think if you're feeding real, true, just produce and real meats and real proteins, you know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
You can buy a supplement off Amazon and it probably doesn't even have any actually like what you're looking for in it. And also too, a lot of supplements these days still come from China.
Yeah.
A lot of vitamins these days still come from China. That applies to people and dogs. So in my opinion, I think you can supplement. I think if you're going to, you can really, really do your research and make sure that you're finding like a really good high quality brand.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I think you're just much better off going straight for real high quality proteins. Taurine's only going to come from animal products, really. And again, you should always be focusing on having a higher protein content when you're cooking for your dogs. So I think just go for the real stuff.
Yeah. And is there anything specific that you would recommend? Like if people are, whatever, after we've gone through all these different lists, if they're like, whatever, focusing on wanting to add
taurine to their diets.
Like, is there a...
So the number one thing is going to be, again, if you can stomach it, organ meat. Organ meat is like packed with amino acids, a ton of amino acids. Even things like bully sticks and all that stuff have a ton of amino acids in it. So all that kind of stuff. I would say if you're going to go for organ meat, like a really easy one, again, I admitted I'm like a pansy. When it comes to organ meat, I can't really stomach it that well, but chicken livers are really like easy. Like beef hearts, beef liver, chicken hearts. You can do as well. You could buy them in those like little pub can things. That's going to be your biggest thing. I mean, good quality meats like lamb, venison, those really gamey meats, those are going to have it. Fish as well. Like your sardines, your all that, that's going to give you a little taurine boost too. And then eggs, which we already talked about. So you notice there's a lot of foods on here that kind of repeat themselves. Yeah. So if you're looking for like a double whammy, like eggs are a good one, the sardines, the salmon, all that.
Yeah. And variety is great too, right? Like, even it's not like feed all these things at one time, but like, maybe you do whatever, salmon on a Monday, sardines on a Thursday, like get the more, and the same even at like, at least in my opinion, if you're feeding kibble, like changing up brands or like whatever type of food within that same brand, like, I think just getting more variety in there, I think is helpful sort of across the board.
That's a big thing that we promote at the store too. So we have a lot of people that, I would say 75%, if not more, of our food sales are from, which is one of the foods that was mentioned. So I tell people, get a different protein every single bag. Every single bag, get a different one. I think a big myth is that you need to always be transitioning and slow transitioning, and you should be keeping your dog on, and you have to do this 75. You don't have to transition if you're eating like a good quality food. If you go from a food like a From, and then you switch to like a Beneful,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, your dog's probably going to get sick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you're feeding it within the same kind of quality of foods, your transitions should be easy. And just like people, if you just ate nothing but grilled chicken every day for the rest of your life, you're not going to get the same health benefits as if you ate, like you said, chicken on Monday and fish on Thursday. And so switching up, whether you're feeding just kibble or fresh food, is really like the best way to go.
Yeah. Awesome. I think it's so helpful to like break it down by vitamin, and then also like everything is so, it's not like crazy food recommendations, like all stuff that we buy
at the store. Exactly. Like you're literally going to pass it, or it's all stuff that you can share with your dog. You can literally, so like for the eggshells, for example, I eat a ton of eggs. I eat eggs every single morning. I save all my eggshells because I'm throwing them out anyway, and I just save them up. So a lot of this stuff is like blueberries, all this stuff. You're buying it for yourself. Toss a few to your dog.
Yeah.
It literally is going to cost you pennies.
Yeah. And it's not like I always, whenever I talk about adding fresh, I always want to like, so not a daunting thing, you know?
Can you get out of here, please? Fallon trying to get me her ball.
Oh,
we'll play later.
I'm thankfully like very occupied with a marrow bone right now. Otherwise, he would be like all over.
I should have done that.
But I think it's like, you know, from a takeaway perspective, I think number one is like it's awesome to understand. You know, go down the list of vitamins and then sort of pair up with like easy foods that we can be adding. But then also like it's not like this huge change and big scary thing.
Nope.
To do. It's literally like buy a frozen bag of blueberries, take a handful, put it in your dog's, add it to your dog's kibble, and like
it's so easy. And then buy canned tuna, canned salmon, canned sardines. Start with that. You know, it's so easy. Yeah. And I think people really overthink it. And I think that's probably a big, you know, ploy of the pet industry as well. Yeah. I think a lot of nutrition for us, just kind of basic knowledge, applies to them as well. I think if you're just applying that same knowledge to them, you'll be surprised, or to us, you'll be surprised how often you can apply it to them.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Amazing. Well, we have like just chatted way longer than I thought we were going to, but I'm so thankful for you for taking the time to like,
of course,
break all of this down. It's been beyond helpful. So yeah. And so for everybody that's watching, thank you so much. Oh, I wanted to say, I'm super excited. So nobody else knows this, and Amanda doesn't even know that I'm going to say this, but Amanda is one of our advocates launching.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, all of that is to come. But yeah, I'm super thankful for you to come on and talk about all the stuff. So
yeah, I'm glad you had me. I do have to go more into the advocate thing since you mentioned it. A few just like notes and stuff. I will be throwing up some of the recipes when my page is a little more live of like go-tos of when we cook for our dogs, some different options and stuff, and all those recipes will be available once my page is up and running as well.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm literally going to subscribe. I need to learn how to make bone broth, or like your bone broth.
Oh my God, it's so easy. I'm telling you, I'm about to change everybody's perspective on how easy it is to cook for your dog.
Awesome. Yay. Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody for watching. Really appreciate you guys. And talk to everybody soon. Bye.
Bye.